So here we have it, my first ever response to a Hindu creationist. I'm sure this will be interesting and not at all similar to every other creationist video I have ever responded to.
Nithya. So this video I am making specially for atheistic people, atheist rationalist people, and especially for Narendra Nayak.
I would just like to thank you for introducing me to Narendra Nayak, for now I can tell my subscribers of him, and his legend shall grow. Narendra Nayak is the Indian equivalent of James Randi, who travels around exposing the man behind the curtain when it comes to religion. Rather famously in 2009, he offered 1 million rupees, so about $15,000, to any soothsayer who could get 25 questions about the upcoming elections correct. They all failed. Then there was a similar incident in 2013 with a prominent astrologer, Jacques Nahejdi, who boasted they could predict the results, only to never turn up when the challenge was issued to them directly. Nayak also founded an NGO called Aid Without Religion, a charity organisation that, as the name suggests, supports people as a charity rather than to preach. For his work over the years, he has been elected president of the Federation of Indian Rationalist Associations, so thank you for bringing them to my attention.
I wanted to write G, but my conscience will not allow me. But with all respects, for the benefit of people who don't know what I mean by atheist. Atheists are people who don't believe in God, number one, and they can even be anti-God. That is up to them. The concept of God, they are against it. One is you don't believe it, you are not convinced about it. Another thing is you are fundamentally against it and you are very abusive and aggressive to people who believe in God.
Right. Well, I think you mean anti-theist. As for throwing around the word abuse, at most, I and other anti-theists I have seen and worked with have laughed at believers for making such a show over the claim that they have evidence, only to fail in supplying it. Now compare that to the abuse towards atheists carried out by theists throughout history and to this very day, such as murder, assault, rape, etc., and we can clearly see that you're doing a real disservice to said word. So maybe go ahead and pick a better word.
Fine. So I just want to share a thought current. And it's especially for Narendra Nayak. Usually I will not make videos like this. So I'm going to share a thought current. Neither I am claiming this is truth, nor I am claiming it's a perception, nor I am saying it's a fact, nor it's a reality. Nothing I'm saying. I'm sharing a thought current, a possibility.
I'm sorry, man, but Firefly is never coming back. No matter how many articles say it may happen, it's not going to. Thing is, in all seriousness, this seems like a setup for a cheap defense to avoid criticism, something I'm not going to allow if that is indeed the case.
So, I am not very convinced with the ideology, the belief system of atheism.
Well, neither am I, since the quote, ideology of atheism is not a thing. As an atheist, I may subscribe to an ideology, i.e. a philosophy or political doctrine. I, for one, am a humanist, but that's beyond my atheism. Atheism refers solely to the shared quality between all atheists, and that is the absence of theistic belief. As for the idea that this is an ideology, consider this. Say you claim to be able to fly at any time without the assistance of any sort of device or machine. You will it happens, you fly. If I ask you to then demonstrate this and you refuse to do so, or assert some non sequitur such as the sky is blue, therefore I can fly, I'm not likely to believe you. Is that absence of belief in your ability to fly an ideology, or simply me not believing in that not proven? Also, if I don't believe in another mythical being besides any of the thousands of deities, say unicorns, is that lack of belief in unicorns also an ideology? You're not making a lot of sense is what I'm getting at here. Maybe go back to the drawing board on this one, as if your main argument is based on this proposition, then you are already in trouble.
And I'll put forward my argument or my thought current and my thinking to it, and you can respond. As a comment or as a response video, it's up to you. And you can be silent also, that's fine. So, the law of thermodynamics as per physics, I think the 0th law says about entropy. Entropy is the measure of randomness.
Oh bugger. Who's been looking up Christian and Muslim websites for arguments in favour of God? First of all, it's the second law of thermodynamics. Secondly, entropy isn't a reference to randomness, but rather a state in which energy can no longer transfer to perform a task. Third, this only refers to an isolated system.
It's the pure law of matter. It says that randomness increases with time. For example, if you see your desktop, as simple as that I can say, when you install a new operating system, it's very clean. As you install more software, it becomes a chaos, a mess. So the mess fundamentally increases with time. You will comb your hair very nicely early morning, and by night it might be even more, you will be scattered. Your hair will not be nicely combed by the end of the day unless and until you comb it again and again. So without intervention, if you leave something by default, it becomes more mess with time.
That's not what the second law of thermodynamics says at all. It has nothing to do with digital fragmentation. It's not why your hair gets messy, and no, it's not why when you put your headphones in your pocket, they always get tangled up. It states that in a closed system where there is a finite amount of energy, that energy will disperse until it is uniform. In the same way that warm air will transfer its heat into colder air, so will all the energy in the known universe until everything is the same. This really demonstrates the problem of equivocating scientific terminology with colloquial terminology. At the current, we have pockets of energy and matter, such as stars, which cluster in galaxies. The energy from these pockets will thin out until everything is uniform, and that energy cannot be used in some other process. We refer to this hypothesized state as heat death, since if and when this point of maximum entropy is reached, no action will be able to take place from that moment. But do note, this is a long way off and has no impact on us at the moment. Using data from a supermassive black hole which emits Hawking radiation, we can easily state that this will not happen for at least another 10 Google years. That's 10 with a further 100 zeros following it years. To give you a comparison, a billion years, as in the age of the universe, is thought to be 13.8 billion years, and the Earth 4.5 billion years, is 1 with only 9 zeros. So the age of the universe is about 91 zeros short of heat death. And anyone who understands basic mathematics will tell you each zero added on the end of a number increases its value exponentially. The difference between 1 and 10 is only 9, whilst the difference between 10 and 100 is 90. And yet in both instances, all I have done is attach a single zero to the end. And that's without even considering quantum physics and the possibility of future energy-forming events. So even if heat death is certain, we as a species will likely never feel its effects outside of sensitive instruments designed to study it.
So that is law of matter. Perfectly fine. Explains a lot of things. Our engines, right from car engines to all the way space shuttles, work on this law of entropy. And there are various equations and all which work on this. It's pretty much satisfied. Fits the normal human plane of understanding. Law of entropy also implies, to give you an example, if you have water and the temperature is just room temperature, that water will not become ice and liberate heat to the outside. But if you leave ice on a table in room temperature, the ice will melt and become water. The reverse will not happen. Entropy or randomness has a direction. See, when it is an ice, you can sculpt it and make a Shivalinga. So it's highly organized. But when you leave it outside and at room temperature, it will melt and become more random, means like water. More random. Before it was more organized, like a Shivalinga or whatever shape it had.
So you do know the analogies used, you just don't understand them at all. It's funny how you class temperature reaching equilibrium, i.e. uniformity, as disorder. This goes back to what I said earlier about using colloquial definitions for scientific terms. This is no better than it's just a theory.
So entropy always goes in the direction where more randomness increases. Atheists, as per my understanding, atheistic people are people who believe that universe is chaos. Right? Fine.
Nope. They just lack a belief in God. That is the long and short of it. If you attach anything else to the word, I can guarantee you that you are wrong.
Now, if you talk about life means me, you see this room, anything, you will see that life is highly organized. Any cell, any living organism around its environment, compare it to the environment around it, it's highly organized.
Can you show me what a unit of organized looks like? Fact is, all natural systems are a balance of equilibrium and chaos, uniformity and the exception. Just take a look at chaos theory and the mathematics involved with, say, meteorology, i.e. weather prediction, which is a single aspect of an ecological biome, and you'll begin to see things aren't as simple as you pretend.
Let's say a snake in the desert. Desert is just sand. There's no life in it, but that, and just sand, SiO2, silicon dioxide, so many molecules and some calcium and carbon and so many elements here and there, that's all. But if you see a snake, you'll find a whole system. He has a digestive system, a respiratory system, so many systems inside it. So how can life happen if fundamentally the law of universe is chaos, is my question.
Well, returning to the before mentioned chaos theory, all order actually boils down to is chaos on repeat until a pattern begins to emerge, which in turn will result in uniformity. Returning to weather patterns, we have untold numbers of variables impacting a single system and forming what we see as part of the ecological equilibrium. If you could just figure out what the second law actually says, then maybe, just maybe, you could say something intelligent.
The first life happening out of chaos is as good as you telling me that a storm came, went across a desert, and a desert or a iron mine or something, it went across the whole planet Earth, good here and there, and it assembled a 747 aircraft. What are the chances of such a thing to happen? It's a complete ridiculous argument.
Hey, Ray Comfort just asked me to tell you that if you could stop calling him at 5 in the morning each day to ask for the latest from creationism, that'd be great. Apparently, every time you call, you keep waking up Kirk Cameron, who gets a little cranky. The analogy is flawed as you are comparing an organic biological system to an inorganic one. It doesn't work that way. We can create protocells from some simple base compounds that demonstrate the qualities of life, including replication.
A cell has so much structure in itself. Even a DNA molecule is so systematic and so structured. There can be trillion possibilities, but it takes one possibility for life to happen.
That's why it regularly corrupts itself and mutates. Now, this mutation can either be beneficial in an organism, such as creating biodiversity via offspring, or it can result in things such as unchecked cellular growth, as with cancer. It's not a perfect mechanical system, so please don't pretend like it is.
How can such a systematic happening happen out of a system which is built in for chaos? Is my question. Look around you, there's so much systematic happening in life. Accidents happen, you might perceive it as an accident. Someone might say it happened for the overall good of mankind or the life of that person, whatever. I leave it as a benefit of doubt for your respecting your opinion. But you cannot say that the life is fundamentally inauspicious. Look around you, life is auspicious. You cannot have the law of thermodynamics, law of entropy explain how life can happen out of chaos.
Well, no. It merely describes how the universe is heading towards uniformity and has no relation to the topic of abiogenesis whatsoever. That's beyond saying that once we reach entropy, this process will then be impossible, as with every other physical process in reality. What's that? Planes use energy transfer for flight? Well, that won't be possible in a perfect entropy, so therefore planes can't fly. What's that? Electrical equipment like your camera requires energy to operate? Well, that won't be possible in perfect entropy, so you better stop talking to thin air. And speaking of air, respiration requires energy transfer? Well, that won't be possible in perfect entropy, so I guess you better stop breathing and wasting our oxygen. Like, seriously, isn't the air quality in Delhi shitty enough without you yapping on?
And it's just you take some sand and juggle it. Do you think life will happen? No. One, it has carbon, it has iodine, like thyroid glands and all that, it requires iodine to function. Magnesium, oxygen, and so many elements come together, form in a particular structure, and all of those organs and everything works together in a beautiful way, then life happens. It cannot happen just like that. Come on, it's a joke or what?
Or what? But in all seriousness, the only issue here is your willful ignorance. You not understanding how something happens doesn't stop it from happening. It just means you're ignorant of the facts, which alone isn't a bad thing. The bad thing is that you have countless resources online to help you learn, and yet you choose to huddle in the darkness of ignorance.
So I am not convinced with the fundamental assumption that life is chaos.
Well, it's not an assumption, merely an observation that at the root of every process observable is some degree of chaos. The easiest way for you to falsify this observation would be to find a single, natural system that lacks said chaos. Write it up in an article, get it peer-reviewed, and collect your Nobel Prize.
So, I'm going to propose a hypothesis that there are two components. One is life is auspicious, and why? That life is chaos. And I say both are there. How much of what, I don't know. Some part of life is inauspicious, some part of life is auspicious. If you believe that everything is inauspicious, you are an atheist. If you believe everything is auspicious, you are a Shaivite. That's all.
Well, that's simply a false dichotomy and one which fails under the definition of atheism. You have to show how order is not merely allowed for but predicated on the existence of a deity, as currently you're simply asserting this to be the case, which honestly doesn't impress. Also, don't just throw in scientific jargon as if it gives your assertion some value. It really doesn't, and it just makes you look even more ignorant if you fail to understand said jargon.
So it's a problem where you are trying to relate with life. You don't know the values of X and Y, and you build up a hypothesis. So the people who fundamentally believe in that hypothesis, I'm giving you a very benefit of doubt. For me, it's the truth. But for you, I'm saying that it's an hypothesis, that everything is auspicious. What is there for you to abuse and attack them? You have a different understanding. See, let's say there's an equation x square minus 1 equal to 0. There are two values, minus 1 and plus 1 for x. You say, I only understand that minus 1 is the answer. I don't believe 1 as an answer to x. Up to you. Someone can say only one is the answer. Someone can say both are the answers. Someone can say this is like a joke. There is a higher truth which we are not even seeing. Up to you. But this is how it is. Looking into matter as it is without being too much invested in one answer that you don't want to see the reality is what I call bias. I am not very convinced about the atheistic thought current which says life is fundamentally inauspicious.
You're taking a very simple series of questions and trying to complicate it to give yourself a reprieve. Thankfully, neither science nor philosophy operate on that basis. Foundational question: can your proposed god or gods impact on our universe? If you answer yes, then they can be measured by science by definition. If you answered no, then they do not exist and you have no reason to believe. Carrying on from the yes answer, if said god or gods has an impact on the universe and is thus measurable by science, their existence may be scrutinized under the scientific method. In science, you falsify the null hypothesis of non-existence by supplying evidence of their existence, thus justifying the hypothesis that God exists. Have you or any other theist throughout history supplied evidence for God's existence? No. Therefore, you have no justifiable reason to believe. Disagree with this statement? Supply valid evidence that a god or gods exists.
Now the auspiciousness part of it, the definition, the Sanskrit word for auspiciousness is Shiva. So that auspiciousness component of the universe, we celebrate him. That's all. What is your problem in that? We celebrate that auspiciousness component of the universe. See, we say that the auspiciousness component is the source of universe itself. You might not buy that argument because you don't fundamentally believe in auspiciousness. That's a separate thing. But that auspiciousness is what we call Shiva and we celebrate him, worship him. What's the problem with that? And we are saying that the auspiciousness exists throughout the universe. In everything in the universe. You might say no. God cannot exist everywhere. I can say that God does not have a shape. I'm just giving a postulate. God does not have a shape. If God does not have a shape, based on that, if I'm saying there are certain places where God does not exist, auspiciousness does not exist, then whatever is left out is the shape of God. Let's say there's a container or a A4 size page you take, some circles you make, that these are the places where God does not exist. Whatever remains, that A4 size paper and those circles, whatever remains, that thing is the shape of God. So if you are saying there are some lokas where he exists and some lokas where he does not exist and the universe itself is like this and that, so you make a shape out of God. And I'm saying God does not have a shape. So if God has a shape, you tell me what shape he has. What is the shape of auspiciousness? Because I don't know the shape, I am putting a postulate that God, he does not have a shape, means he is everywhere. Since he is everywhere, he is in me, he is here also. And I worship him. What's the problem with that? He is everywhere, he is in a deity, he is in me, he is in a plant, he is in you, he is in me, he is in the air, he is everywhere. I celebrate and enjoy him. What's the problem? You like red color, I like blue color. Is there anything for you to become abusive about it? I am not against you being atheistic. I am just saying I am not convinced with that thought current. That's up to you. But you have no reason to become abusive. So that's my message for you, and you can come up with your response video, and I'm open to it. Thank you for watching. Nithyananda.
The problem? God existing or not is an objective state of reality, unlike preference of colour. You assert God exists, yet you have no evidence to support that assertion. What's more is that you use that assertion without evidence to dictate the lives of others, as well as indoctrinate children to close their mind like yours and turn them away from education, which stagnates progress. On top of this, you teach woo as a solution to real-world problems. These are but a few of my problems. Now of course, I'm not Narendra Nayak, but I believe he would share at least one of these issues, as they are very common issues taken with religion. As for the so-called abuse, the only, quote, abuse Narendra Nayak could be accused of carrying out is questioning you. That right there demonstrates the shutting off of one's mind I'm talking about, how questioning the religion you attempt to propagate to others is equated to abuse. Meanwhile, religions the world over abuse children, murder atheists, mistreat women, and your religion is no saint in these regards. To pretend questioning is abuse is to teach any child listening that this is the case, and that is actual abuse which stifles their cognitive growth and exploration of the universe we live in. As a humanist, I am 100% against just that. Hi there, I'd just like to say a few things here at the end of the video. First, I'd like to say thank you to everyone who has ever donated to the channel via Patreon, giving a special thanks to the following people: Trevor Matheson, Andrew Spreitzer, Sean Connelly, Alexander Williams, Daniel Martinez, and of course, Matthew Kovac. Your support has ensured this channel its ability to grow over the years, and hopefully for the years to come. I'd also like to ask that you comment down below and like this video, as well as subscribe and follow Essence of Thought on Facebook. Please also consider following the Atheist Alliance International group on Facebook, an organisation dedicated to helping atheists around the globe. Last of all, I'd like to request that you treat the people responded to in this video with a reasonable degree of respect. Whilst it is understandable that there are justifiable limits to said respect when tackling certain heavy topics, and anger can be a very genuine emotion in tackling injustice, any comments utilising language which insults others on the basis of perceived gender, sexuality, ethnicity, or both ability, mental and physical, will be removed immediately, and the commenter may be blocked on the moderator's discretion. Let's keep this space one which upholds the humanist values. So with that noted, take care.